Hello there. Good afternoon. I believe we're live on Facebook. This is Dil, the party wall guy, coming to you just after 2 Tuesday afternoon. So it must be time for question time with the party wall guy. Welcome, and let's get started. Brief run through, if you can send me your questions in. Basic housekeeping. This is a Zoom webinar, not a Zoom call, so that's just to protect your privacy. There's no fire alarm scheduled. My fire exit's over there. If you get a fire alarm, make sure you know where your exit is. I can't help you on that front. If you're listening to this on your phone, you'll have the following options. And if you want to ask questions, they'll be at the bottom. So send your questions in. If you lose connection on your Wi-Fi, Zoom will reconnect itself. Don't worry about that. If we lose our Wi-Fi, a little bit of a major outage, we've got backup, and it'll take about a minute to get going on there. Got the right background today. I had a different background last week. Recordings, yes. So recordings do go up on YouTube. They're going up on our channel, 1996 Party Wall, and we do cut them up and put them into question sections as well. They'll start appearing in a couple of weeks. Usually there's about 3-4 week lag, so you need to either watch this live or watch it on Facebook. But they go on our YouTube channel just so that you've got a library of questions and answers and all these programs you can revisit anytime you like. Talking about my book. So this was published a couple of years ago. It was on Amazon. It's still on Amazon. Don't buy it just yet. Wait for the revision to come out. I'm also working on the audio book and the ebook. So exciting stuff to come. If you think of questions, please send them in. We'll try and answer them towards the program, and send them in as soon as possible. We do get in danger of missing them sometimes. Moving on, quick introduction to myself. My name's Dil Gujral. I'm the Chief Surveyor at 1996 Party Wall. And every Tuesday we do a question time answering your party wall questions. There's my details. Send me an email, send me a LinkedIn question, put your comments in the YouTube. Always look forward to getting your questions. Got some really interesting ones this week. Let's get it going. Okay. Q&A. So we've been going through a series of why undertake the Party Wall Act, who does it apply to, what, when, how, where, so on. So this week we're going to look at what is the party wall process. So it's the what we're doing this week. Okay, let's start from the building owner's perspective. I'm going to come to definition of who's a building owner shortly anyway. So the Party Wall Act is written in terms of sections. It talks about walls, foundations, and generally speaking, unless you're a lawyer, and even they don't get it right sometimes, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So we try and translate the act and what it's referring to in terms of common works that are undertaken, and we see these up and down our street every day almost. So most common type of works are rear extensions, so that's where you have various sections applying, 6.1 and 6.2, and usually section 1 notice. On the notice period is how long notice period you need to give to your neighbour before work start. And I would say, generally speaking, it's advisable to give them 3 months notice before you intend to start works. And that's just to make sure that the party wall process can be gone through in time before you book builders. It can take anything from 1 week to 3 months. So, the process itself is dependent upon your neighbour's reaction, the other surveyors, and various issues on the complexity of your project. Next sort of, let me see if I can put my magic wand on. Yep, there we go. Next row here is loft conversion, loft extension. This is where section 2/3 notices apply. This is a 2-month notice period, and here it's again automatic dissent. So if you don't receive a reply, it's assumed your neighbours dissented. That was a change from the 1939 London Building Act to the 1996 Party Wall Act. You'll have to watch a video on a little history. I've got one on the YouTube channel anyway. Removal of chimneys. Now, please be aware that removing chimney breast, and that's the chimney element below the roof line, is notifiable work. So don't go ahead and do that thinking it's only a little bit of work, we can carry on doing it. And in fact, removing chimneys is the type of work that's likely to most cause damage to your neighbour's building. So be warned. Again, it's section 2(3) notice, 2 months notice period, and it's automatic dissent. Basements are the most complex works. They're the ones that are most likely to cause damage next to even more than chimneys, and notifiable under section 2(6) and section 6(2) of the Act, possibly 6(1) and 1 depending on, sorry, not 1, 6(1), yeah. 2 month and 1 month notice period, again automatic dissent. And lastly but not least, and on occasions it does happen rarely, porches can be notifiable depending on where they're located and your neighbour's property and various other things. I've done party wall awards with porches, and I've been sitting there thinking, can't be happening, but if you follow the rules of the Act, it can be notifiable. Under section 6(1), and with porches, if you're notifying under section 1, watch out for that, because that could lead to a boundary dispute, another can of worms. We don't really want to discuss that. That's a 3-week program on its own, right? 1 month, and we haven't got 3 weeks. 1 month notice period again. Section 6(1) is automatic dissent, and section 1 is automatic consent. Now, please note the notice period and dissent and consent relate to the section numbers where the notice is served and not to the projects. That's just a summary of what we see most of all going on in our neighbourhoods and when we're walking by. So just bear in mind the party wall process for any of these types of projects. You obviously get commercial projects. There are more detailed, and there you have to look at what's actually being done. But if you're doing something commercial, you'll obviously have a set of professionals on board anyway, hopefully. And let's get on with a little bit of definition. So the party wall process. Now, the party wall process is started by the building owner. So that's the person who's going to carry out the works. And it started with a party wall notice. I'm gonna get a little bit heavy on terminology here. Party wall notice is not a party wall agreement. And I keep hearing this, and it's okay if you haven't watched my program, but if you watch this video, please don't call it a party wall agreement. It's a party wall notice. So you send a notice to the neighbours, and it started by serving a notice, and there's various set formats on how you serve a notice. Not going to go through it today. That'll come under the how, obviously. Stage 2 is decided by the adjoining owner. So this is slightly abnormal in life, where if for example you say to an architect, do me a set of plans, they'll go ahead and do it. They'll say, yeah, this is what we need to do. You might get variations, but generally they carry it out. Now, stage 1 is carried out by the building owner, and usually party wall surveyors issue notices on their behalf. Just making sure everyone can hear me, no hands going up or questions. So stage 1 is notices, although it should be served by the building owner. Normally surveyors serve it on their behalf. Stage 2 is decided by the adjoining owner's response. They can respond a number of ways. Most common is they ask for a schedule of condition, which is a survey, largely photographic, of their property. Very similar to renting a car. They'll come out, take photographs, and just so that when you give the car back, you know you haven't driven like a maniac, any damage is already there. And most important point to understand here is it protects the building owner from false and malicious claims. its primary purpose is to ensure the building owner doesn't get blamed for damage that's already existing on the adjoining owner's property. Even in our own homes where, you know, we become oblivious to damage that's already there. So, and that happens in a number of occasions on adjoining owners, that they become oblivious, they don't realize it's there. And when work start, they don't start looking, that was a bit noisy, or there's loads of vibration. There's a new crack there, was that there before? So that's the reason, and that's the function behind the schedule of condition. It's there to protect building owner. Unfortunately, we don't have a TARDIS. We can't go back in time, see what it's like. So that's why we do a schedule of conditions. Second option they have is to ask for an award. Now, award is what I presume can be stated as a party wall agreement. So, you know, where they talk about party wall agreement, what they're actually talking about is a party wall award. So this is a legal document which sets out each party's rights and responsibilities. It also contains a procedure to let everybody know what will happen next if there's damage. And the whole function behind the Party Wall Act is to make sure nobody goes to court and to keep them out of the court. A dispute resolution procedure. It has a dual function of protecting, making sure the building owner can carry out their works. It's not there to stop them carrying out works. Second joint function is to make sure the adjoining owner's property and interests are protected. So moving on, basic terms of the Party Wall Act are: you have the building owners. So these are the people who want to do works. Could be a leasehold owner, could be a freehold owner. If you're a leasehold owner, make sure you get freeholder's consent. See a different video. It's around here somewhere. And that's very interesting, freeholders' consent, when we're talking about airspace and doing building on top of, creating flats on top of buildings where there's airspace available. Please watch that one, it's really interesting. Adjoining owners, there can be multiple adjoining owners. There's multiple classes on, obviously. So you've got the freeholder. Depending on the position of your property, how it's located, there could be a number of freeholders. You've also got leaseholders. Now, solely leaseholders are more than 1 year, not lower than 1 year, not ASTs. And here there's a gap that gets missed. That's leaseholders between 1 and 7 years. We're not on land registry, and this is where we get our leasehold and freehold owners from. There's also a set of owners who have rights to receive profit. So these might be trust owners or people who've done purchase lease options. They've got right to receive profit in land or the building that's the adjoining owners. And this is quite a difficult group to get a hold of as well, because they don't show up on land registry unless they've registered their interest. And last but not least, and this is where it gets really interesting, those that are contracted to buy land. So if you've given a notice and your neighbour comes around, and we've had this on a number of occasions where they say, oh, we don't really care because we're selling it, we've had an offer accepted, you've been great neighbours, but we're moving on. Now, in that scenario, you should engage with the new potential buyers, because once they exchange, they're notifiable under the Act. Again, excluded groups, short AST tenants, council tenants, and mortgage companies don't need to be notified. Let's have a look at the process for each adjoining owner. So first of all, work out what the works are, notifiable works, work out who's the adjoining owner, and for each adjoining owner, this is the process that gets followed. So each adjoining owner can do one of the following things. They can consent with a schedule of condition. Once that's done, at least for that adjoining owner, the party wall process is completed. You're ready to start works. Now, you've got to do it for all the adjoining owners. So depending on your project, your location, and various setup of the neighbouring building, that's what will determine the number of adjoining owners there. So the second option the adjoining owners have is to dissent to the party wall notice and ask for what's termed as a party wall award. They can do this in a number of ways. They can ask for an agreed surveyor, where the same surveyor acts for both sides. We actually have to behave impartially and not take sides. And in residential works, it was envisaged when the original legislation was passed that for minor residential works, it'll be agreed surveyors. It's not happening as much as it was originally intended. So you get agreed surveyor, they'll draft up the schedule of condition, and that's where the surveyor acts for both sides, building owner and adjoining owner. They can also appoint their own surveyor. This is where you have a surveyor for building owner, surveyor for adjoining owner, and that's called own surveyors. The process is slightly more complex, but the output's the same, i.e. there's a schedule of condition and a party wall award or an agreement, and then work's already started. Now the fourth option, that's not really an option, but it gets missed by a lot of people, and the reason for that is it's actually not in some of the government guidance booklets. They've completely missed this. It was written in 2002, and I guess when they wrote that, it was just after the law was passed. They thought this is not really going to happen, and everyone's going to behave amicably, and so on and so forth. So if there's no response to your notice, earlier on I mentioned automatic consent and automatic dissent. Where there's automatic dissent, you have to send a 10.4 reminder letter, a reminder notice under section 10.4b that they need to respond, or a surveyor will be appointed on their behalf. Now, if they don't come back to you within 10 plus 2 days, a surveyor is appointed on their behalf. The surveyor appointed on their behalf requests a schedule of condition. If access isn't granted, they carry out they serve a party wall award, and then you already start works. So it's quite important to follow this 10.4 process through, because it can cause problems if you don't. Now, we've had some really great audience questions this week. I'm going to go through these. These are really super interesting. Let me just check if I've got any more questions coming in. Not yet. So your questions coming in, really good audience questions. Actually, both of these were by LinkedIn, so thank you very much for sending these in. So the first question is, I've had to edit it a little bit. Basically, if this is how it came in. If such things as alarms, say, is set up in an external wall of a property and the adjoining owner doesn't live there at the property, and you're appointed as an agreed surveyor, this is actually from another surveyor, and the adjoining owner asks you that due to the works preceding the building owner side, because of the vibrations, the alarm is, should the alarm be mentioned in the award, and is this right to put it in the award itself? Right. First couple of points here. The adjoining owner does not live in the property. That's almost irrelevant, but not quite, because we're looking at a scenario where the property might be rented. So in that case, where you've got landlords, they often appoint surveyors because they don't live there. They're not keeping an eye on the works. They can't stop the builders from damage. And this is where they usually end up appointing another surveyor in our experience. So the fact the adjoining owner doesn't live there is quite common, because there's, I think 1 in 6 houses are now rented or something. I could be wrong on that. There's a very high degree of rental property, and in that scenario, you're often finding that houses next to normal houses or normal residential streets are rented. So if they don't live there, it shouldn't make a difference. And as an agreed surveyor for the adjoining owner. Now, whether you're an agreed surveyor or a surveyor for each side, you should still act impartially and without favor. You're not there to take sides, and hence why agreed surveyors are allowed. Can be difficult. You do need to hold strong, but you need to remember that you're under a duty to act impartially. This is odd because a party wall appointment is a statutory appointment. You don't have a client relationship there. You're there to carry out what the law says you should do. So bear that in mind. Now, if an alarm is damaged due to vibrations, yep, the adjoining owner is allowed compensation, but they need to prove that the alarm was working in the first place. So, you know, I'm assuming it's burglar alarms or so on. They usually have annual services, so you should have those on record, and then they'll need to prove that it is working. And if it gets damaged due to the vibrations, strictly speaking, it may not be under the Party Wall Act, but because a dispute, and that's what party wall surveyors do, they settle disputes. A dispute of this nature is minor. You know, it's probably better to settle it for rather than go through court. And then if someone ends up in court, again, that's the whole premise of the Party Wall Act. It's not really fair. So avoid going to court in a sense. Now, I think it does come under the remit of the Party Wall Act because it comes under causing more disruption than necessary. Section 7.2 or 7.1, one of those two. So yeah, watch out for burglar alarm. I'm assuming it's a burglar alarm. The other interesting question that occurs, I'm going to move on to the satellite question, but before I do this one, the other question we've had is if the satellite is installed close to the works and they are happy for a loft extension to do, then yes. So I'm going to assume that the person asking the question meant, are you responsible for the satellite dishes functioning, and B, what happens if in the way? Actually, let me answer this question, and then I'll go on to the kitchen one that we come across quite often. Right. So I'm assuming that there's a satellite there. The building owner has decided to build, and if your scaffolding disrupts satellite insulation, are you responsible for moving it? I'm going to say yes, because you're causing disruption to the neighbor and it's unfair. Had you not done the building works, they would have been sitting there watching the Sky Channel. Other channels are obviously available, sitting there watching their movies, doing whatever they do, you know, whatever the travel programs or whatever comes on satellites these days. I'm just too busy watching YouTube, actually. Anyway, so if you hadn't done the works, the satellite wouldn't have been interrupted. And it's a very minor point, very minor cost. So usually surveyors say, yep, it's no problem. We'll reposition the satellite or make sure it's connected. And it's more a case of goodwill and doing the right thing rather than just following the law and arguing about every single point. Now, the other question that comes across quite a lot is when you've got rear extensions and there's a cooker hood venting out. Now, there's no right, and this is going into easements. There's a whole set of laws on easement. I'm just going to run through it quickly. Where you've got a boiler that's serviced by pipes, and those pipes run through on the adjoining owner's property, that you deal with, because where you've got boilers, they can't go on to vent or take intakes from neighboring properties. So that's a gas safe thing, sorry. So gas safe to deal with that. Where you've got venting from extractor fans, say for kitchens, if they've been there less than 20 years, and it's for the adjoining owner to prove that they've been less than 20 years, it's for the adjoining owner to prove that they've been there for more than 20 years, then yes, they're going to get cut off, and the adjoining owner needs to make arrangements to reposition those. The interesting question then happens is where you've got soil pipes that are, you know, in some houses you see that they've vented them onto the side, and then this side bit gets sold off as a development site. And there's an easement whereby pipes and conduits that are conducting water are allowed to they're needed for the functioning of the property. So you're not allowed to cut those off. However, you can build around them, and therefore it makes access impossible for the adjoining owner. So the solution there is to give them notice, say, look, you need to reposition it, otherwise we're going to build around it. With Windows, it's a right to light thing, 20 years, really complex there. Actually, I think I'm going to have to do a whole program on this stuff on its own. So the one thing is with air bricks, it's been decided that there's no right to receive air from air bricks because that can be received anywhere. There's a slight difference where there's a conduit and it's ducting and it needs ventilation systems to work. But generally speaking, air bricks can be sealed off. You obviously want to do the neighbourly thing and give them warning that you're going to do this and not just do it because it'll cause damp in the neighbouring property. But general principle, air bricks, there's no right of easement for air intake. Oh. So that's been a little question and answer session. So we've had some really interesting questions there. Please keep your questions coming in. Thank you very much for those questions. Got no more questions at the moment, so I'm going to ask one of our sponsors, Mr. Ranjit Singh, to come on board and give us a couple of words of wisdom, because he's always got really interesting stuff. Don't worry, I'm going to start your video up, Ranjit. Oh, done it already. There we go. Are you there? Can you unmute yourself, sir? Hello, Ranjit.
Hello, how are you, Dil?
I'm good, thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm just going to go onto your slides. Any decent property program is not complete without Mr. Ranjit's presence.
Oh, thank you very much, Dil.
That's why he's known as the Maharaja. So I'm just going to put your slides on. Give me a minute. I'm going to quickly go through them. There's a whole bunch of questions we usually get. Oh, there we go. Right, so, over to you.
Oops, that's the old one.
I'm afraid it's the old one. I haven't updated it yet.
Can I share a slide with you?
Can you share a slide?
Yeah.
We do have the technology.
Okay.
So it's only the person operating it may not be able to. I think you should be able to, so have a go, sir.
Let me try. Be a good practice.
You'll have to do a screen share.
Okay. Let me just get it up.
Oh, hang on, I lied to you. Allow pen, okay. So you might be able to do it now.
Okay. Does it come through?
No, not yet. Let me make you host, but only if you make it, if you promise to give it back. There we go. How's that? Have a go now. Yay, we have the technology and we've managed to make it work. So over to you, sir.
Is that the one with the 200th issue?
That is the special edition of the special 200th edition. Tell us more about it.
Okay, just a second. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Dil.
Sorry, could you either put your volume up or come closer to the mic if you wouldn't mind?
How's that now?
Slightly better, a bit more?
That is the maximum.
That's the maximum. Okay, all right.
Rest is on your side.
Yeah, it's probably something I've done. So usual technical glitch, but carry on, sir.
Well, it's gone off.
We can see all your interest. That's it. Now you've got the slide shown. That's it. Happy days.
Okay, my name is Ranjit from Property Investor News. A new world ahead for the bold and the brave. Education is the only weapon to be successful, no matter what business you're in. Property is no different. Prepare yourself for the changes, challenges, and the opportunities ahead. Become educated, knowledgeable and informed investor. Our publication, Property Investor News, provides you analysis, news, research on property investments. Also updates on mortgages, finance, auction, legal matters, and much, much more. We do have a time-limited offer. Our June issue, 2020 issue, is the 200th issue, as you can see on the screen. Receive 3 free issues plus our 200th issue, in total 4 issues for free, and also a book written by 2 auction experts before the hammer falls. Main theme in our 200th issue, student sector review, and much, much more. To subscribe, just follow the instructions on the slide in front of you. I'll leave you with this. We are in challenging and changing times. There are going to be setbacks. Remember, when you get a setback, don't sit back, only to step back, to bounce back. Behind every setback, there is an opportunity. And also remember, today's decisions are tomorrow's reality. Remember, you have 3 choices. Take it, leave it, or change it by design. It's your future. Thank you very much for your time. Back to you, Dil.
Thank you very much for that. Great magazine, obviously a subscribe, and the book's great as well. I don't think we've got the 200th edition, and it's still in the post, is it? Is that right?
You should have had it by now.
Okay, I've got to check my mail then.
That's
so
good.
looking forward to that. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Next Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Yes.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Dil.
Thank you.